as I understand it. Drum roll, please. Okay, we are
Right. Cool.
live.
Great.
Okay, so as I just discussed with Dan here offline, this doesn't have to be a formal debate. I know I've been noting that a lot of people who are much more invested in the Epstein maximalist interpretation have been very reluctant to debate me or even engage with me in any way. I don't know that I would ascribe necessarily that outlook to you. I don't know the full extent of your outlook on Epstein, but you did want to have some sort of debate slash dialogue, right? Based on my happening to see a handful, one or two of your tweets and objecting on certain grounds.
Yeah. So can I do a little intro about
Go ahead.
my Epstein journey? And okay, great. So,
We all have an Epstein journey at this point.
So my Epstein journey began when I was working as an intern at the New Republic and sitting through just dog shit editorial meetings there. And this was like around 2019. So this was like right around when he died. And there was just like a group of people who would meet up in Union Square to discuss it.
Yeah, like Dasha and people, the Epstein meetup.
It was a weird. I never saw her. I mean, I only went a couple times, but there was Catholic people.
I remember Dasha from Red Scare for a while had like an Epstein meetup, and I don't know if it was Union Square. I thought maybe it was Washington Square Park.
I was not involved in that. For
Okay.
the record. But it was an outdoor gathering. There were reporters. There were cranks.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was a great, weird, eclectic.
You got together and you celebrated child sex trafficking.
And no, we sat under a statue and we said, like, okay, what is the venue to understand more about this, right? It was, you've admitted yourself that it was a strange thing. There was questions around
the death,
Cambridge, the death.
Yeah. I mean,
the fact that Bill Barr was the attorney general at the time, right?
I don't know that's what struck me as so strange about it.
I'm just saying,
because who cares if his father Donald Barr may or may not have been the headmaster?
Sure, I'm just saying
at the Dalton school. That's another like dot connecting thing.
Right,
but
I'm just saying
the death itself. Yes, my instinct immediately on hearing about it was suspicion.
And there hadn't been a lot of reporting on it yet, right? Like now we have
been quite a bit.
There hadn't been the
August of 2019. No, not like we're seeing now, but there was quite a bit at the time.
And
I didn't have sufficient knowledge at the time.
That podcast was all about it was just starting up. I'm saying,
which is a joke.
There were more questions, sure, but I'm just saying there was not some information. So, anyways,
sure,
that was the.
But now we're in 2026, so let's.
Now we're in 2026. Okay, so let's get to it. I think the first time that you got on my radar about this, I know you've been writing about this for a long time, was your piece on the reality of the Epstein Disclosure Act, right? The fact that there was actually loopholes. I think that's the right term.
I don't know if that was the headline, but yeah, I read the Massey Kana bill.
Right.
It was just before I went down to DC actually to attend the first quote survivors press conference in front of the Capitol.
Right.
By the way, most, if not all, of the purported survivors at that thing are just fake, meaning their survivorship is fake. Nobody in the media wants to point that out. But anyway, yeah, the Epstein Files Transparency Act, I did something novel, I guess, in the journalism world, and I read the bill.
Right. And there was a loophole. I mean, there
were several loopholes.
Sure.
And a lot of people fixated on the national security loophole, as though that was going to prevent us from learning the truth about his connections to the Mossad and so forth.
No, but the point
exception was the victim identifying information loophole.
Sure, that's one loophole. But I just want to backtrack to the thing you said about national security, which I think I am not a intelligence. He was an intelligence asset guy. However, I think that loophole is still important because it gave DOJ the ability to use that exemption for a lot of things. So,
well, they claim they didn't use it for anything in these latest productions. That's what Todd Blanche expressly said.
Okay, sure, but they had the other one you pointed out.
I mean, if I had my way, I would have had a one-sentence bill: release the Epstein files. Wasn't that the slogan?
Yeah.
It wasn't release the Epstein files and then add 17 exceptions that can be interpreted a million different ways.
The explanation was ultimately that
you had to protect the victims.
No, you're wrong. I believe what Massey said. No, I believe what Massey said in terms of the national security loophole.
Yeah, not the national security one.
Was that we would never get any support without that exception. Which what?
He told me that. I'm the one who put out that quote.
Right. So. But I think
he didn't explain that. That was just an assertion.
Okay, but I think that's a powerful, interesting point that he was afraid.
I don't really buy it because he's like off the reservation, so I don't know how you could take anything he says.
I do buy it because I think that is the way that any of our federal law enforcement or national security agencies withhold information. So, anyways, I think that's an important point. But I would like to. I would like to tell you,
just vastly lesser significance in terms of the practicalities of what in fact has been redacted or withheld.
Sure. Yes. Right.
And then the other glaring exception that was inserted, which is this victim identifying information exception. I know guys on the internet, readers of Drop Site News, and all these podcast, dudes, they love to fixate on the intel aspect. It's a cool espionage saga. So they don't focus as much on the other stuff. But if you're mad about the redactions, you should be mad about the exception that was inserted at the behest of the lawyers who conferred with Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey to protect their quote clients and their lucrative lawsuits, which is the victim identifying information.
Can I have 5 minutes here to just
2
minutes? Can I have 2 minutes?
Go ahead. Yes.
Look, I feel like I had questions that I wanted to answer myself, specifically about this alleged intelligence nexus. Okay. I quit my job at The Intercept because they would not let me pursue national security reporting.
Really? More trouble in paradise at The Intercept.
Yes. And so I wanted to investigate these issues. Now, I did write 2 articles. I don't know if you saw my articles about Jeffrey Epstein and the CIA and Jeffrey Epstein and the FBI. Before you freak out, let me explain what I found.
I'm not going to freak out. I didn't see them. I will acknowledge.
There has been exceedingly little evidence, as far as I'm concerned, that Jeffrey Epstein was any sort of intelligence asset. In fact, I think many of his emails regarding the CIA make him look like he was begging to knock on the door and be let in. He wanted this access. He wanted, to go to Langley. What I did hear from a lot of
and he sure had a lot of unencrypted emails and texts for an intelligence asset.
But what I was told is that he was very likely bumped, knowingly or unknowingly, by a member of the National Resources Division, whose job is to talk to people who are handling the types of money he was handling, who have connections to those types of people and are traveling to the places that he's traveling. And so to me, that I spent a long time hitting up a lot of different people, trying to understand what was the intelligence nexus there. And
who'd you hit up? Can you give us any examples?
No.
Okay.
But you can read the article. That article is I believe in Rolling. No, that one is in Unheard. Sorry. And I was also very curious about
I've done Epstein reportage for Unheard as well, maybe from a different angle. But it was but my Prince Andrew thing that they solicited from me last week was even too spicy for them. So.
Sure. Okay. But I want to move over to FBI because that gets us closer to some of the real points that I think we fundamentally disagree on.
Okay. And then I have a few introductory points as well.
Okay, sure. But so
Can I ask? Okay, make the FBI point.
Well, I also wanted to call around to talk to both DOJ officials and FBI sources to ask, what is the inside perspective there? Because if you actually have read through the multiple OPR reports, if you've read through
there's only one OPR report, right?
No, there's 2 OPR reports actually.
What's the second one?
There was the first OPR report, I believe, is from 2017, and then they reopened the examination in 2020. There's 2 reports.
So there's a 2017 report, DOJ OPR report.
Yeah, but there's
if that's true, you've told me something new. See, there's always more to be learned on this topic. I hadn't known that. I will definitely look that up.
I think it's OPR. There were 2.
There's lots of IG reports in addition to the main OPR report from 2020 on the 2006 to 2008 Florida investigation.
Hold on. No, there was. I believe there are 2 OPR reports.
Whatever it is,
So anyways, if you've looked at those, I just was curious about what is the inside perspective here from DOJ, from FBI, because
on what, just like Epstein in general?
Well, there's different factions, right? You have Main Justice, you have the U.S. Attorney's Office for Southern Florida, and then you also have the FBI,
SDNY,
multiple FBI, SDNY, but I'm just focusing right now on 2006, 2007. And then you also have
which the SDNY actually did have a role in, as we've now learned in some of these new records, even though they kind of tried to obscure that to enable the feds to re-indict Epstein while circumventing the constraints of the non-prosecution agreement. But anyway,
so the main takeaway I found was that there was extreme pressure exerted basically across that chain of command, whether it was the local PD, whether it was the FBI agents who were assigned to the case, whether it was the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Extreme pressure exerted from what direction?
extreme pressure exerted from Jeffrey Epstein on each one of those law enforcement nodes. And so that's where I think we really fundamentally
insofar as he had a very well-resourced defense counsel,
I wanted to let you do your introduction, but I wanted to say that the place I'm most interested in having this discussion is in the place I'm most familiar with in my own reporting is those sort of early days. I would like to really focus on sort of that time period.
Yeah, okay. I just want to set some parameters, though, in terms of where we might diverge.
Sure.
So I'm just going to read you a few quotes or excerpts and just get your general agreement or disagreement or somewhere in between as to these quotes. Okay, so this is Murtaza Hussain of Dropsite News, where they cling to every little tangential Israel thing they can fish out of any archive, and they take for granted.
Don't make me shit talk Murtaza, because I disagree with some of Murtaza's reporting, but I've always described Murtaza as levitating, one of the most chill people ever.
But perhaps that proves that chill people can definitely be full in favor of morally panicked nonsense
about what I may or may not be about to say.
Okay, so here's a direct quote for him, November 22nd, 2025. I thought this was an astonishing quote because people kept telling me I must read all these bombshell Dropsite news scoops to learn how the Mossad was running Jeffrey Epstein.
Sure.
And so they would always take for granted that there must be this child sex trafficking, but never actually do any reporting on it. So here's what he says.
Give it to me. Let's go.
Quote, "It's amazing that the conspiratorial contention that the U.S. is run by a cabal of genocidal child sex traffickers is more or less true and substantiated by available evidence."
Give that to me one more time.
Okay, quote, "It's amazing that the conspiratorial contention that the U.S. is run by a cabal of genocidal child sex traffickers is more or less true and substantiated by available evidence." So I'm just curious what your take is on that, and then I have a couple others. So just hold that thought.
Okay, great.
So
I like the rapid fire.
This is Ryan Grimm. He decided that Whitney Webb is a paragon of journalistic achievement, and he decided to credit her for having been vindicated, essentially, for this prognostication that she made in April of 2020. So this is Ryan Grimm amplifying this quote, and this is from Whitney Webb, co-signed by Ryan Grimm. Quote, your reminder that Leslie Wexner financed the mass rape and trafficking of thousands of American children for over a decade. Okay, and one more.
Sure.
And this is outside the Dropsite universe now. So we're going to Thomas Massey, right? Because he's on the vanguard of all things Epstein. Now, whether that's slandering random auto mechanics in New York as child sex traffickers or everything else he's been up to in his eventful past few weeks. He says, quote, Now that we're exposing the extent of Epstein's global pedophile ring and how it touches our government and aristocracy, there's a campaign to smear me in social media, and he's basically asking for donations. So I'm wondering if you agree with any or all of those statements as to what the parameters are here of what this story ultimately can be said to consist of.
Sure. Okay. Well, first of all, I mean, I would say that I have lots of issues with the work of my former Intercept colleagues. I often find the work published by Dropsite to be histrionic, misleading, and at times untrue. But it's a somewhat complicated response to this idea of a global network. I do not think that hundreds of children have been, I think that's getting a little into Alex Jones territory. But I was wondering if I could get 5 minutes to lay out a little bit of my...
I'll give you 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes? Okay, but start the clock. I'm looking.
Got it.
Okay.
Clock's ticking.
So, and this gets to, I think, really the bottom line here of where we're going to disagree. I read through some of your reporting on, again, those early days in 2006, 2007, 2008. And what seems to be one of the main catching points here is a contention that you have that despite the fact that dozens of underage women, girls, if you will.
Hey, hold on, I gotta stop you for a second.
Well, no, you
are you going to reveal whether you agree or disagree with those statements that I read you?
I think I said I don't.
So you disagree with them?
I think I would say I.
Okay, so then the gap between us is lesser than maybe we might have thought.
Okay, well, can I finish though? Because you said I had 2.5 minutes.
Go ahead.
So in your writing, you say that it seems like one of the foundational tenets of your whole rejection of this whole thing is this idea that the underage women, the high school students, the dozens of high school students who went and performed various acts for Jeffrey Epstein, ranging from clothed, semi-nude, and sex acts with Jeffrey Epstein, should not be adjudicated under the law because they lied about their age.
They should not be adjudicated under the law. I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, you said you had one tweet that said, "Why are we having this moral outrage for someone who was 17 and engaged in a sex act with Jeffrey Epstein?"
Do you want me to address that, or do you want me to let you complete your 2 minutes?
I'd like to finish my 2 minutes.
Okay.
And when we go from there into the rest of your writing, and we look at the OPR reports, and we look at some of the arguments that you're making about that era and the way that this sweetheart plea deal was not actually a sweetheart plea deal. A lot of what you describe is the fact that these women, who I think you acknowledge are underage and were engaging in illegal, that Epstein was engaging in illegal acts, were starting to recant some of their testimony. You kind of paint one of the chief prosecutors, Maria Villafania, as waffling on the strength of the case, when I think if you actually review a lot of the allegations in OPR, and you also review the testimony under oath of the agents and law enforcement police officers who were involved, you see that there's tremendous pressure exerted by Jeffrey Epstein, again, on these women, harassing these women.
And when you say tremendous, okay, I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Surveillance, threats.
I don't know. That's
intimidation.
That's never been established. I mean, that's part of the Netflix commercial narrative.
Well, no, I mean, it's part of the sworn oath testimony of FBI and West Palm Beach police officers.
That what's like? Give me an example of a threat.
Okay, can I read you an email sent by the
because we're talking about tremendous pressure. We're talking about stuff that's generally within the law, meaning he had a very aggressive defense counsel. There's no doubt about that. He had a lot of money to hire some of the most skillful and aggressive defense lawyers in the country to support his position. So I've never denied that, but like when you say a tremendous pressure was exerted by...
Okay, so if you look at my article that I reported in Rolling Stone...
Not even a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of pressure that can be exerted with the full force of the federal government.
Well, how about the fact that he hired private investigators to harass and surveil FBI agents to the point where they had to move their home address because they felt as though
harass and surveil, I just think it's a bit of an overstatement. Was anything illegal about it?
No, but we're talking about the way that he used his power to manipulate the criminal justice system. And in fact, Marie Villafania,
if only every defendant had the resources to be able to quote manipulate
the draft of her indictment, which OPR discovered, Villafania had 2 charges of obstruction that she wanted to bring. Now were ultimately cut from the deal.
Right, because they appeared to be groundless. One of those.
Let me read you. I want to read you this email. This was an email written by one of the private investigators that Epstein hired, who worked for a firm that was run by senior former DEA agents. This is the email. "We are undertaking some very discreet surveillance of the house in order to observe and verify."
In which house is he referring to?
Well, it's redacted in this email. It's one of the victims. This is in 2006. One of the high school students.
One of the alleged victims.
One of the high school students. Who is
I mean, why can't we say alleged victim? Why is that such a taboo? Why is everybody just presumptively a victim as though it was ever adjudicated? Because it has not been. I'm sorry, you can want there to have been some adjudication that would entitle us to say victim, but I don't understand that. Like, why are journalists so eager to ascribe victimhood without the slightest bit of corroboration of anything ever? I don't get it.
I mean, if you're driving,
I don't know that there were dozens of high school students.
If you're driving down through the Tenderloin and you see a child in high heels and lipstick, and you ask them, "Are you 18?" and they say yes, and you say great, and you pull them into the car, and you have them rub you down and jerk you off.
Car.
Isn't that still a crime?
Did Jeffrey Epstein ever
No,
pull somebody into a car?
I'm just asking though. I mean, it was well known.
That would be an assault.
It was well known in all of
that would be an
circles.
assault and kidnapping. So bad
How
analogy.
how about a 14-year-old?
If Jeffrey Epstein committed an assault and kidnapping, then sure.
How about a 14-year-old going into his house and rubbing him down in her underwear?
Yeah, inadvisable behavior. Sure.
Inadvisable behavior?
Yeah, I would say it's inadvisable behavior. I don't think do you think that's grounds for 20 years later for the entire world to be embroiled in what we're told is the most giant, is the most massive pedophilia crisis of all time?
With the fact.
Okay, let me respond now. Let me respond now.
Is that wrong?
Let me respond now.
I'd like to hear your answer.
I'll respond now, okay?
Great.
So we've established that you disagree with the Ryan Grim interpretation of thousands of child rapes that have covered up.
Sure, and the intelligence agencies and the
okay, fine. My whole point is that the assumptions or the extrapolations associated with that Florida episode have gotten so extreme and so far afield from the actual facts and evidence that yes, I do think it's a more than worthwhile corrective on my part to try to bring things back down to reality a bit and let's say keep things in a sense of proportion, because the entire world right now is reverberating with uncontrolled rage about what we're told is the most unthinkable pedophilia scandal in world history. And I don't think that the facts of the Florida case support that at all. That doesn't mean that I'm therefore saying I condone everything that Jeffrey Epstein ever did or what have you. But I do think, yes, how about a little bit of perspective so we're not fomenting mass hysteria?
That's why I wanted to talk to you, because I do agree that there's a lot of criticism and everyone's cashing in on this story. But what my critique of your writing and your perspective often is that you are not taking all the facts seriously. And
I think the severity of Epstein's conduct has been grossly exaggerated to foment this mass hysteria. It doesn't mean that I'm therefore saying, great idea, Jeffrey, to have girls funneling into your house and not being told super scrupulous about checking their ages or even being in that position in the first place. But yeah, I do think that the severity of the conduct has been grossly exaggerated. Very few, if any, of the girls contemporaneously, as far as anybody can tell, perceive themselves to have been victimized by anything. Okay,
how are you making that assessment? The girls who were in high school,
because that's what the
girls who got into, where one girl got into a fight and was attacked by her fellow students for being a prostitute, 14-year-old who was being called a prostitute.
Yeah, she was victimized by them. Students. But there's not really any evidence. And if you found some, it's always possible that I've overlooked something. I'm not claiming I have totally comprehensive.
I mean, you would agree that we have age of consent.
Yeah, but we also have our own critical
girls in
we also have our own critical discernment to understand whether the current political, legal, and cultural narrative is consistent with the underlying facts and evidence.
That is a separate concern, and it's a legitimate concern, is how is this energy being marshaled? What I'm saying is that you have overlooked the foundational elements of this piece in an effort to redirect what is in some cases hysterical energy. But what I'm saying is I want to show you some of the places where I think you're wrong, and I want to try to put in front of you some other interesting things. So look,
can I just give you? I want to give you one example of what I'm talking about as to the lack of contemporaneous perception of victimization. So, the 17-year-old who was by then 18 that Epstein ended up having to plead guilty to procuring for prostitution pursuant to the terms of the non-prosecution agreement. He pleaded guilty to 2 state-level Florida charges, as I'm sure you know, and then. I guess I'm the only one who ever thought to go look at the Florida court docket and and pull the transcript of that plea hearing. It turns out to be this one 17-year-old who had told police it was consensual activity with Epstein. There was intercourse the day before her 18th birthday. There had been incrementally escalating sexual contact before that. But she tells the police investigator, Rickeri, that Epstein didn't force her to do anything. If she didn't want to do something, Epstein had no issue with that, etc. Okay, so when I describe that set of facts, people then immediately accuse me of saying that was swell for Jeffrey to have done that. Great idea. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that is worthwhile context to understand what kind of proportionality we should apply to this,
fine,
right?
but
And
that
so,
ignores the dozens
I'll
of
give you
other
one more data
girls
point. I'll give
who
you one
we
more data
know
point.
he was surveilling and intimidating.
I'll give you no. I
Let's
thought we
be
were talking about the
honest.
severity of the
Let's be
sexual
honest. If
victimization.
you're living in a trailer park
I thought we were
in
talking about the
Florida,
severity of the sexual
and some guy
victimization.
comes and knocks on your door and surveils you and follows you to school. I mean,
I don't know
that's
that.
real. That's something that
Okay,
exists.
but I thought we
We
were
have the
talking about the
emails. We have
severity.
the emails that show that was happening.
But I thought we were talking about the severity of the sexual victimization, not the ancillary stuff later about surveillance or
Let's
lack
talk
thereof.
about the law. I mean, let's talk about the law.
Why? You asked me for my moral judgment.
No, I'm
So
saying there's
what's your
two
moral
sides.
judgment?
There's a moral judgment.
Okay, so let's talk about the moral judgment, then we can move on to other considerations.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So I mean, so if the girl who is 17, right, just to take one example, perceived herself to not have been victimized in real time, and in fact was demonstrably more disturbed from being ensnared in the prosecution of Epstein. She did not want to participate in his prosecution. She did not want to be summoned to testify before the grand jury. She didn't want anything to do with it. She even says to the questioner at the grand jury session, "My life was fine." I'm paraphrasing. "My life was fine before you guys made me come here." So if that's the kind of victimization we're talking about, hold on, one more point. And on top of that, one of these new files I have been looking for a long time, but couldn't locate, but found in these new record productions, is a deposition of the police chief, Rick Harry. And he's asked to describe the interviews that he conducted with all these girls. Yes, some of whom were in high school, some just out of high school. You know, it was a spectrum of younger women to girls.
Some were 14.
Yeah, the initial one was 14. And she was told by Haley Robson, who we're now told is a survivor, to lie about her age. And Epstein asked her explicitly, "How old are you?" She told him 18. Again, I'm not saying that to condone it. I'm saying it's worthwhile context. If all you ever read about Jeffrey Epstein and all the political turmoil he's spawning right now is notorious convicted pedophile, sex trafficker, etc.
Okay, fine. I hear your argument, but you agree that he broke
here's
the
what
law.
Rick Harry says.
Underage girls
give me 30 more seconds. 30 more seconds.
He committed. Okay, fine. 30 and then.
What Rick Harry says is that, but for some of the girls not being above the legal age of consent in Florida, there would not have been any victimization for him to pursue. Or put another way, there were girls who were 18 and above who he did also encounter and who he also did locate and interview, who participated in some of these massage sessions. And they had not been victimized in a way that could have been
told his recruiters that they were too old, right? So there was.
I don't know that that's true.
No, that is true. That is in the interviews of Rossetti with the high school girls. So that is true. And there was a fixation.
Rossetti.
What's the Rick Harry, sorry.
Yeah, so that's his characterization of something.
But that's the characterization through multiple emails with all kinds of other people, through the fucking president of the United States.
Joanna Schoenberg was there, and she was 22, 23, and she told Rick Harry when he interviewed her, "Look, whatever went on between me and Jeffrey was between consenting adults." So she was beyond that age range.
Sure, that's one example. But again, you're writing off dozens of
I'm not writing them off.
You are, and oftentimes they were, working class, poor girls who were
not all the time.
And also, he paid he threw money around like crazy. He was donating.
That's why they kept coming back on their own volition.
But he was also paying off the police. He donated almost $100,000 to the West Palm Beach.
Paying off the police. He would make donations to like the police foundation or whatever.
Right. And this gets.
But apparently it didn't work because Harry and Ryder were very aggressive in pursuing him, weren't they?
Refusal to engage in any of the tactics
right now.
Well, you're saying that my reporting is completely moot. The fact that he was intimidating federal law enforcement officials, the fact that he was intimidating women at their homes.
I think you're mischaracterizing it.
Talked about one of the private detectives running him off the road. So there's
which was never substantiated. Again, another Netflix myth.
What about my independent reporting of DOJ and FBI officials? I mean, are you calling me a liar? Are you calling my reporting false?
No, I mean, the running off the road incident, though, I'm not aware of that ever being. I would have to take a look at your reporting.
But we have emails. We have multiple emails from his PI shop, his elite PI shop, full of former DEA agents talking about surveilling these girls in their homes.
Okay, but if you're a defendant, right, if the government's coming hard after you and you are well-resourced, you have a lot of money, you can hire very well-resourced and aggressive lawyers, then one thing they might suggest is that in order to gather evidence that could help you defend yourself, you might send out investigators to gather information. Like, I don't to say that's intimidation or it's something like
Well,
inherently sinister. I just don't buy because that's
I'm just
something
saying
that
the
I would recommend.
DOJ,
That's something I
the
would recommend to
DOJ,
virtually any defendant who has the government crashing down on them if they're able to do so.
what I'm trying to tell you is that the DOJ officials I spoke to are very familiar with aggressive defense tactics, and they said that this was unprecedented what they experienced, and that was
Yeah, there
federal
was a
law
lot that was
enforcement.
unprecedented about
So
it, including the idea that you could charge
God
what they
knows
were
what
contemplating
those
charging
goals.
as
God knows what those
federal
goals.
sex trafficking.
Now, I want to move on here. I would like to move on to
Okay.
get deeper into the plea agreement. Can we do that? Because you've
Sure,
written
sure, sure. But I
extensively about
want
the
to I
plea
want to bring up
agreement.
something myself first, and then we can move
Okay,
on to that.
sure.
So one of our exchanges, okay, and this maybe gets into a little bit more of a media critique, but I'm going to quote you. This is February 19th. Important to remember that the first journalist to excavate the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein was a working class warrior named Julie K. Brown, and not an Ivy League employee of the Times or the Post. Wow. So inspiring. This working class hero, I can almost, let's play the John Lennon song to celebrate Julie K. Brown. I don't know. She got a $1 million
Why
advance for her
John
book.
Lennon?
A working class hero is something to be. You never heard that song? It doesn't matter. I'm sure there are other working class songs that I could have cited that maybe.
Yeah, John Lennon is just kind of.
He had a working class
for me.
hero.
I would go with
He had a song
Bruce.
called "Working Class Hero." I don't know.
I would go with Bruce personally, but
okay.
You're from Jersey too, so it's kind of.
But I mean, Julia K. Brown. I mean, not that this is that important of a point, but like she's been made hugely wealthy off her supposed expertise in the story. Afterwards, but more relevantly is that the initial series was a joke. I admit that I was bamboozled by it at the time. I took way too much of it at face value. I was not in a position to be able to discern that she was simply serving as a PR proxy for these profit-seeking, quote-unquote, victims lawyers, one of whom, Bradley Edwards, brags about how he manipulated her into doing his bidding because he had litigation that was ongoing against Epstein, and she helped him out to divert attention from some of his tactics. And let me just finish. She fabricates quotes in her book, Perversion of Justice, which was a book-length expansion of her Miami Herald series. If you go back and look at that initial series, she foregrounds people like Virginia Roberts Giuffre. I don't know. You can give me your take on her. It seems like signature allegation after signature allegation that Virginia Roberts Giuffre made, thanks to the likes of Bradley Edwards, who was conniving with Julie K. Brown, have been resoundingly discredited. And that's the crux of the Epstein mythology in terms of child sex trafficking to prominent individuals, blackmail, etc. And Julie K. Brown could not have been more hyper credulous in just promoting that stuff. And she's been on a warpath recently.
Right, you said 30 seconds. That's more than 30 seconds.
And the articles are also riddled with just like factual errors.
Okay, but can we talk? But
it's embarrassing.
Let's talk.
So
about
why do you find her so inspirational? Let me know.
Well, I think because the facts of the plea agreement are actually accurate, and you're saying that the original 2019 miscarriage of justice article is a 2018 is a complete fabrication.
Not a complete fabrication. I'm saying it's incredibly flawed and misleading.
But can we go through some of that to discuss? For example, let's talk about Matthew Menschel. Okay, can we talk about some of the people who had pretty obvious conflicts of interest that never arose, that were involved in both the prosecution and the defense in various ways? I mean, like, there were
conflicts of interest on both sides, arguably.
Surely you saw the article that she did today, which was effectively a restatement of the
Which article today?
I think it was today that there was basically a restatement of a lot of the people who were involved in both the prosecution and defense and sort of where they are now, because there was obviously in one of the latest tranches, there was emails that came out showing that Menschel and Epstein sort of developed this close relationship
after
the prosecution, but before his
there wasn't any conflict while the prosecution was underway.
Only that that he had dated Epstein's defense lawyer.
Right. And that was then noted by Acosta, and he sought a guidance from the DOJ chain of command to see whether that rose to the level of a conflict of interest that should necessitate a recusal. And he was told no, because it was like 20 years before or
Right.
something.
And what did the
But how about
OPR
this
report?
conflict of
But
interest?
what
Are
did
you
the
aware of
OPR
this?
report
Bill
found? It found
Tanya,
that Acosta repeatedly fucked up, and it didn't have any criminal. It didn't have any
are you aware
criminal
of this conflict of
liability.
interest? Villafania, right? Her boyfriend had a law partner whom Villafania wanted to refer the victims' cases when the civil restitution mechanism was set up, so that they could use this lawyer to acquire the civil restitution from Epstein. So in other words, she knew somebody in her close social circle, her boyfriend's partner, law partner, was the one that she wanted to funnel business to collect all this money from Epstein pursuant to this bizarre and I think unprecedented civil restitution mechanism that Epstein had to agree to in the non-prosecution agreement, where he had to waive his ability to contest claims against him amongst the 30 or so government designated victims. Or were you aware of that conflict?
Sorry, say that again. I was looking for something else.
Okay.
I was looking
In
for
the
a different conflict.
non-prosecution agreement, one of the
Yes.
terms of it, right, is that Epstein would have to waive his ability to contest claims against him for civil restitution, meaning for money, monetary damages.
Right. Right.
It amongst this 30 something victims that the government had designated but hadn't been adjudicated as victims. And Marie Villafania, the hard-charging prosecutor who wanted to most indict Epstein, her boyfriend's law partner was the person to whom Villafania was proposing to funnel business so that law partner could represent some of these government designated victims as they were seeking to collect the monetary damages from Epstein. Now, that might be considered a conflict of interest as well. Were you aware of that one, out of curiosity?
No, I wasn't.
Well,
That's
there you go.
but
We all learned
but
something new.
let's do one more back at you, which is Reinhardt, who was one of the prosecutors who uh, was found to have started laying the groundwork to communicate and go work for Epstein while he was still working on the case. Villafania had conveyed critical information about the prosecution to him. He denied that he had information about this, but later that was contradicted in a different legal altercation down the line. And then OPR decided that they were just not going to look into that in the same way that they didn't look into a million other things. OPR also interviewed, going back to the FBI and DOJ officials, a bunch of FBI who were involved in the case, who all testified that the whole thing was crooked, that they were continuously stymied at every.
They said the whole thing was crooked?
Yeah, that there was evidence destruction, that they were continuously trying to make arrests and get search subpoenas, and that they were routinely rebuffed by the U.S. Attorney's Office. And then
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I've
printed
seen that quote where they say
that's
everything was crooked. I know, even Villafania, who was the most aggressive in wanting to pursue like the maximum punishment of Epstein federally, she also said that, look, I mean, the reservations that were expressed within the office in South Florida about the evidentiary issues, the legal issues
right. The
around
evidentiary
jurisdiction,
issues.
they were
Well,
valid and they actually were a significant problem, which is why
why
a
were
bunch
they a
of people in
significant
that
problem? Again,
office contemporaneously are saying amongst
that
themselves, not just
ignores
the fact
ignores
that
the
they thought
evidence we
that they
have
thought
about the
they thought
pressure
they
campaign
ran the
that
risk.
disrupted the witnesses being
They
able to
thought they
testify,
ran a
and that's
risk.
documented.
They thought they ran the risk of actually having Epstein acquitted at trial, and he would face no punishment at all. So they thought that the
Okay,
optimal
but
resolution from their standpoint
let's
was to
hold
force
on,
him
hold
to
on, hold
plead
on. I
guilty to
want to
these
go
state level
back to
charges.
your questioning about the three theses on global pedo. I do not believe in the maximalist interpretation. I believe that there has not been.
Well, what do you believe?
Well, that's what I'm trying to explain.
Okay.
Can I? May
Yeah,
I?
go ahead.
Thank you. I do believe that if you spend time actually reading through the email back and forths with a lot of the famous people, whether it's Bill Gates, whether it's Romler, whether it's Larry Summers, there is an acknowledgement of whether it's with Larry Summers' wife, who's constantly talking about Lolita, and what's the other book? Some other book about an older man with a child. There is, or whether it's the president's statement about his interest in younger women. There is a implicit but constant understanding that Jeffrey Epstein is engaged in some sort of taboo behavior involving relationships with young women and in some cases children, as we know, again,
The
from
children thing is a leap, though. The children thing,
it's not a leap based on the
it
facts
is.
that we already agreed on, that
Oh,
he was
no,
getting
no,
massages from
it is a leap. I
14-year-olds.
mean, it's a
Why
leap
is that a
because
leap?
it's a leap because virtually all the email exchanges you can possibly be referencing there would have occurred during the period where there's no evidence that he actually had any illicit sexual contact with anybody below the age of 18. There's no allegation from 2005 onward that he had any illicit sexual contact with anybody under 18. He did actually change his behavior after he started being investigated in Florida and
What are you
stopped the
talking about?
massage
He was
situation.
on house arrest and he hired officers from the West Palm Beach Police Department to guard his house, and then he snuck women in to jerk him off. He didn't change his
You just said
behavior.
women.
What do you mean
I'm
change his
talking. You
behavior?
said
Oh my God,
if we're
women.
so we can't distinguish women and children.
No,
That's
we
a really
can. 14 year
exasperating
old,
distinction to make.
14 years old is a child.
No. Post
No, it's not.
2005, post 2005, when all these email exchanges with Larry Summers and his wife Eliza New and all these other people are occurring, if they're referencing any taboo behavior, they're referencing that yes, he did enjoy being surrounded by young, attractive women who were adults, but young adults. That is true.
What
Anything that
about
can be
Lolita? Do
classified
you
as a
know what that
child
book is
did not
about?
take place post
Do
2005,
you know what the
as
book is
far as
about?
any available evidence has ever suggested,
But do you know
or
what the
as
book
far
is
as
about?
ever even any allegation was made.
But do you know what the book is about?
Sorry?
I'm just saying, like, you're saying that there would be no suggestion of that there would be no knowledge of that. I guess what you're saying is that the grand jury records and the police testimony wouldn't have come out yet during the time period that those emails were being sent. But what I would argue is that the fact that in 2019 you have Elisa New making these references shows that all these people did actually know about his proclivities and did know about
Yeah,
his
with younger women.
predation. Right, and didn't know about his behavior. I mean, those books are about men engaging with children who are under the
Okay,
age
but
of
that's our
our
best
American age of
that's our best
consent.
evidence. We just got millions of new records. You're
No,
saying our
that's
best
not our
evidence as
best
to
evidence. Our best
predation
evidence is
upon
grand
children,
testimony.
pedophilia. Pedophilia
Grand jury
is some
testimony,
snarky
and
reference to a book and an email. That's our best evidence at this point.
well, and the president saying it, and a half dozen other people talking about it. Now, I
But no
want to.
hard evidence.
Well, the hard evidence is the literal hard evidence we have that he was engaging in these acts with children
But
under
not
the age
post
of 18.
2005. Like from 2005 to 2019, there's never even any allegation that he engaged in illicit sexual contact with anybody under the age 18. So if they're making snarky references to some book in, I don't know, 2013, and it's a reference to his proclivity to be surrounded by attractive young women, it's a reference to young women, not children, not something pedophilic.
But
And yeah,
why?
I think that's
But
worth
the
emphasizing if we're going
literal
to be in the throes now of a global pedophilia
but the
panic.
literal references, you admit that those books are literally about men engaging in sexual acts with women who are under the American age of consent. That's literally what they're about.
So what? They're
I'm just
snarky
saying.
emails.
I'm just saying. Okay,
Like,
let's
shouldn't at
move
this
on.
point we have some more tangible evidence if that's actually what they're referencing?
Let's move on.
You're not into like the pizza and beef jerky stuff, are you?
No, I'm no, I'm not. But
Okay.
can we shift to one other
Well, I want to
larger.
no, I want to ask you one more question because you asked me a lot
No,
of
but I
questions, which
want
is
no,
fine.
I don't feel that's true at all. I don't think I've really been able to
Okay,
dig
go
in
ahead.
here
Go ahead.
on a whole other subsection, which
Sure.
is I want to talk about because I actually don't really know what your perspective is on this because there's so much fighting that goes on about this other stuff. So I'm very interested in some of um, the suspicious activity reports, the FinCEN flags,
Uh-huh.
the retroactive information we know now about things that happened in the past regarding Jess Staley and JP Morgan, the concerns that were raised prior to 2019, the concerns that were raised, say, in 2010, 2011 by JP Morgan executives. I mean, I'm curious in what your perspective is on, were they anticipating what we're seeing now? Or how do you view that as the fact that there were very senior people in these organizations saying these money transfers are suspicious. This guy is a potential huge, massive liability. Um, how do we have those records now? We have those emails. How does that fit into everything? Is that not a hard capital Financial Times uh, uh, element to show that okay, this wasn't just politicians grandstanding. This wasn't victims trying to tap into a compensation fund, but the hard barons of capital were literally concerned about their bottom line because of this guy.
Sure. I mean, they became aware that one of their most lucrative clients had gotten himself convicted for prostitution charges in Florida. So obviously that's going to be flagged. That's going to be something considered. And then a cost benefit analysis was made at JP Morgan that although this is concerning and we should keep our eye on it, he's still a profitable enough client that we're not going to cut him off. And yeah, it seems like the calculation that was made. Then JP Morgan ended up getting sued out the wazoo for that years later because they unearthed those emails where they were proven to have been aware that there were issues and that Epstein could be a liability, and yet they proceeded to permit him to continue banking with them or to continue to allow him to store their money with him and like make referrals to JP Morgan and so forth, and then later Deutsche Bank. Yeah, so that's true. I mean, but like, what's the rub there? Because to me, the rub is that was then the fodder for these giant class action lawsuits to be brought by the cabal of lawyers, Edwards, David Boies, et al. And we're always supposed to be like underscoring the beleagueredness of all these working class victims and so forth, and yet they were represented by some of the most powerful attorneys in the world, and they were able to extract just from two multinational banking institutions $360 million in a class action lawsuit that was basically about them being accused, these institutions, of either being active enablers of, quote, sex trafficking or being negligent in not monitoring Epstein closely enough. And what I take to be the most important aspect of that whole part of this is that this whole notion of a giant globe-spanning sex trafficking ring was the invention of these profit-seeking attorneys, effectively using creative legalisms because trafficking is such a nebulous concept, and using like the PR pressure on these multinational banking institutions to extract these gigantic settlements. And the reason why that was so formative in laying the groundwork for this mass hysteria is that it grossly inflated the number of alleged victims or perceived victims, such that we're told still today that there are either hundreds or thousands of alleged victims. And the average member of the public hears that and says, "Oh my God, you're saying there were thousands of helpless children who were victimized?"
Okay,
no, that is false. That is making people crazy.
Yeah.
Just last weekend, we had a 21-year-old who was obsessed with the Epstein files try to launch an armed incursion into Mar-a-Lago.
I know. And then that's. I mean, I'll agree with you that that level and language is irresponsible. But I want to go back.
Just out of curiosity, have you ever like pushed back on that language anywhere?
I mean, I haven't. I don't think I've that. Like, I'm just not even aware of that level of like obviously
language. At what point is anybody else in the media other than me going to try to counter it to some degree?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, I guess, but I guess my concern is less. I mean,
and by the way,
I think that's
here is if the world is convinced that there's a giant pedophilia crisis, okay?
I mean, like,
there is no better excuse for the government to crack down and impose greater surveillance powers and expand the carceral power of the state.
This is a good piece to get into too, because like I saw that one of your main pieces was about like this idea that this is somehow an affront to civil liberties.
Yes,
but I do think that like if you're willing to acknowledge that a lot of this is, especially at least in the political arena right now, is being weaponized in a super partisan way because of the president's affiliation, and it's being completely directed in that direction.
It's turned the media into this like algorithmic retardation slot machine.
But
another bad effect.
But can we look? I mean, but you did acknowledge that there was serious concerns in 2011. You acknowledged that.
I don't think this. I'm not saying that I personally felt them to be serious concerns. I'm saying the banks themselves, the employees of the banks, perceived them as something that needed to be flagged and monitored, such that they were fulfilling their obligations under these various laws and regulations.
Right. And you agree that you wouldn't contest that Jess Staley did sleep with Epstein's assistant in.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well established. I wouldn't agree that constitutes some kind of heinous sex trafficking
No,
offense.
I'm not saying
By
that.
all accounts, it was a consensual
I'm not saying
thing,
that.
right?
I'm not saying that, but I'm trying to answer your initial question. And you would dispute that Bill Gates um, asked Jeffrey Epstein for advice about sexual encounters that were in some way affiliated with him. And
I don't know that that's quite right, but
well, he did. I mean,
however,
he emailed him for advice about how to deal with the
okay, but we're talking
venereal
about
disease he
consensual adult
contracted.
encounters
Yeah, yeah,
here.
yes, sure, sure, sure. Yep.
So, like,
I'm not saying.
why should we be so alarmed by that? Explain it.
I'm
Like,
I'm
did Bill
agreeing
Gates
with
have an
you.
affair with like a young woman
No,
who
but
was like
look, but I'm
some kind of
agreeing with you,
extremely intelligent
Michael. I'm
scientist? You're
agreeing
telling
with
him
a piece of you that the scope of this has been distorted in some capacity. But I do
okay. So
think
when's the
that
correction coming?
well, I don't know. I'm a freelancer. I mean, I'm not.
I'm not
I'm
saying you're
interested
personally
in trying
obliged
to
to like join
show.
my corrective
I'm trying
crusade.
to. I spend a lot of time on articles. You know, it's not easy to get former CIA, FBI people to
I got
talk
you. This
to
is
you.
fine.
Okay, so you know, I'm interested in the truth, but I do think that you're writing off the reality that these people knew. I do think that these people knew about what happened in Florida, and I think that
Of
the
course it
elite
did. It was
get
public
a sick.
information.
Yeah, I think they get a sick thrill out of the taboo and the violation of our social contract. And in fact, the reason why those lawyers, those compliance officials at JP Morgan were so worried in 2011 was because they knew that the society we live in does not accept the behavior and crimes that Jeffrey Epstein was committing. That's
Yeah,
literally.
which he served his sentence for at that point. I mean, what are we talking about? So, I mean,
You also acknowledge
do you
that he
think
was
that
addicted to getting
Do you think
jerked
that
off.
Noam Chomsky is
So,
one of these
so
people who got a sick thrill from entertaining Jeffrey Epstein
I
after it
think
was
he
known that he committed certain
I
offenses?
think he got a different kind of sick thrill.
Oh,
I
really?
think he got a
So
sick thrill.
you feel like Noam Chomsky is guilty of something morally condemnatory?
I do actually. I do
Oh,
think that.
okay. Well,
Yes.
we
Yes.
disagree on that for
Well,
sure.
that's okay. But I believe that thinkers, journalists should be very insulated from people like Jeffrey Epstein. In
Why?
not
I'll meet
necessarily through
anybody as a
discourse.
journalist.
No, I'll have a discussion,
There you go.
but
So you
there's a
wouldn't have had a
difference.
discussion with him?
No, I probably would have had a discussion with him.
Okay. So then you could be denounced now after the fact as
Yeah.
somebody who
Yeah,
somehow enabled Jeffrey
and I
Epstein.
don't agree with that. I mean, I call all kinds of people. You know, I get attacked by people all the time for saying, "Why are you talking to?" You know, I was tweeting about talking to people in DHS, and people said, "Why would you talk to those Nazis?" I don't agree with that, but
I
my point is
I
that
agree with you. I agree with your
there's
attitude.
differences between speaking with someone, having a debate, having a conversation, and the gradations that we saw happen with all kinds of people. The fact that a fucking New York Times reporter started out making phone calls and then went down the slippery slope of hanging out and then getting Epstein to donate like 30 grand to his neighborhood
Is that
association.
Landon Thomas? Is that who you're talking about?
I think so, yeah. So my point is that I agree, like as reporters, you actually need to be able to talk to pretty much anyone. But again, with the news outlet you mentioned
Well, I
earlier,
agree with Chomsky in that he looked at the reaction publicly to the Julie K. Brown Miami Herald farce, and he was able to discern much earlier than I was. So I think he should be commended for this. He was able to discern that it was just hysteria, and it was impossible would have been impossible to reason with, which is why he maybe mistakenly told Jeffrey Epstein that he should just keep quiet for a while, let things blow over, and then within 6 months, of course, he's put into federal jail and then ends up dead. So that didn't pan out
so
as Chomsky
uh,
foresaw it. But
okay,
other than that, on the substance, I'm sorry, I agree with Chomsky, and I am stridently opposed to people just flippantly declaring that he needs to be melodramatically condemned for having had really laudable prescience in understanding what the real situation was here and not being swindled by media hysterics like Julie K. Brown or all these other people.
okay, we have 5 minutes left, and as I said, my wife is sick, so I
Okay.
do have a fast 8 cutoff.
Do you agree? So, Virginia Roberts Giuffre? I mentioned her before. Do you think that's a legitimate part of this?
um,
Like, do you
I
believe the thrust of what she has alleged? And
I do in part, but there's a different question I would like to end on because I feel like that's more your terrain of picking through all the books and stuff, and I just like haven't done that, and I'm not really interested in doing that.
it's some pretty important terrain to tread if you
It
want to be conversant on this
it
subject.
is in one sense, and it's not
It's
in
like
another.
taking down the British royal family right now.
Yeah, which is fucking hilarious, and I'm here for it. I saw you wanted to go, hand out hot chocolate to Prince Andrew, but I'm sure he'll be
I
fine
would. I
without you.
mean, I'd
So,
be okay with them taking down the monarchy, but maybe
but
for like something real.
I would like to end on this, which is I thought one of the most shocking things that I saw that to me really wiped out a lot of some of the histrionics, but also revealed how stupid the ruling elite are. Was the 2-hour Bannon interview
Yeah.
with
By the way,
Epstein?
where's the other 14 hours? Or now he says it's 50 hours?
Oh, really?
He told the New York Times there's like 50 hours. So I
When?
don't
When
know.
did he
Why
say
do
that?
we only have that 2-hour excerpt? I don't really, I still don't understand it.
Well, I don't know, but if we're taking that as, I mean, if we're just watching that, if you've watched
Uh-huh.
that, I mean, I found that incredible in the sense of
It was awesome.
he has this platform to talk about so much, to describe so much, and he just comes off as so fucking stupid. He can't get his metaphors in order. He can't really explain the financial crash. He keeps going back to these metaphors about a human body and all this stuff, and you can see Bannon getting
I followed
frustrated.
that metaphor pretty well. The metaphor was if you have a heart attack, right? And I'm not going to tell it right,
Seems
but
like
it was
you didn't follow it long enough
in
to
the moment the
remember it.
metaphor made sense, meaning in that like Bannon was trying to get him to say what the cause was of the financial crisis in 2008, and Bannon said it was this, right? And no, Epstein was saying no, it was a confluence of things. Just like you can't necessarily assign a direct cause if you have a heart attack. You can't necessarily say after the fact that it was caused by one particular condition or
Right,
something like that.
right. Which
I mean, I
I mean,
follow the
look,
metaphor. I don't know if
okay.
it was the most brilliant
Well, I
metaphor
think it was a
ever invented, but
yeah, but no, but then he kept applying that metaphor to other things, and it was interesting because, he was
I don't take him to be stupid. Like, why do we have to? Why do we have to declare that this guy was stupid when he clearly wasn't? Doesn't mean that he was good or bad necessarily. You can be highly intelligent and also wicked,
I think
but
he was
I think he
highly
was extremely
socially
high
I
intelligence.
think he was very socially manipulative, and I think he
Sure,
amassed
which
a
might
lot of
require some
money
high
very
intelligence.
quickly. I mean, I don't wanna get into, like, some eugenics, like, skull measuring thing with you. I
I
just, uh,
I had no notion of
I just
eugenics
think if
when I
you read
said
his
that.
emails and you watch his interviews, he comes off as perhaps socially manipulative, but extraordinarily stupid on any actual issue of substance.
I don't know that I don't know that I agree with that.
I mean, his response to the financial crash is, "Oh, this was not CLOs. Oh, this was not the rating agencies. This was
So
just
many people
a
who
lot
knew
of
him
little
personally say
just
that
a
he
lot
was
of little
extremely high
inches."
intelligence. Like Wexner just said that, and I don't know why he would make that up at this point since he's trying to distance himself from
How
Epstein.
many rich people have you talked
Chomsky
to?
apparently thought he was
I
highly
mean,
intelligent.
rich people are some of the stupidest people I've ever met, and
So,
Chomsky is
so
kind of on
you
the
think Chomsky
spectrum
would like
too.
lie? What ground? What reason would Chomsky have to falsely say that he found him intelligent?
I think he was, he lauded Chomsky. I think he offered to introduce Chomsky to all kinds of different people. I think he was a money bags who was part of the elite that was still willing to tolerate Chomsky and his radicalism, which was probably a rarity in his life. So again, I think he was very socially manipulative, but I don't think he was intelligent. I mean, I've read a lot of his emails. I've watched the interviews. It, I
Garbled
just,
emails. I mean, that's true. But a lot of older people who are not like keyboard native
No,
aren't
but
very
no,
proficient in just like
I'm
starting
not
off.
talking about the spelling errors. I mean, I'm even talking about his memos to himself. I mean, there's a just a lack of strategic intent in his self memos. There's just
He might have had a more
beginning. And I'm sorry,
mathematical proficiency
my experience with the
than
wealthy
verbal.
and the elite is that they're extremely stupid people. I'm being honest. That's not like a moral judgment. That's just what my experience has been. They're very dumb people.
Okay. I mean, I don't know that that's accurate, or if that would even give us the best insight into how best to understand or conceptualize what this whole Epstein thing was, if we have to just feel like we're morally obligated to declare him to be a dummy.
All right. Well,
I don't know.
we have 1 minute
1
left.
minute left. Is there any
I'm gonna
would you
try.
like to make a final statement?
I would like to make a final statement. I would ask that Michael, you go and you read some of my reporting after this,
Okay.
and maybe you can give me a free subscription to your stack, and I'll read some of yours.
Okay.
I would just like to say that I do think that everyone and their mother is grabbing onto this story and trying to get their own from it. However, I don't think that erases a lot of the essential foundational underlying facts. I think that you should also go and check out reread the OPR stuff. I'm going to try to find that second report, and I believe it's referenced in my FBI story.
Okay.
But that I would just highly suggest that you have garnered a lot of attention I think it's good to be someone who's always sticking their
And you've said that
fingers in
you said something like, I have done something that had some value in shining a light on these settlement programs and like the whole racket that's been established around
well,
this stuff.
and showing
Is
that
that
people
right?
are and that well, I would say that showing that politicians are all using this, in different ways for their own
And it's like a
gain,
$1 billion industry.
and that it is a big industry, but that again, like, our job is to piss everyone off, and that means not only pissing off, the Epstein champions, but also pissing off the Epstein deniers, and following the truth wherever it
I don't
goes.
know any
My
Epstein
that's
deniers,
my
and I wouldn't consider
that's
myself an
my
Epstein
well, I mean,
denier, but
what about the New York Times op-ed page? And now,
like who?
that fancy little guy from Unheard who interviewed me. I mean, I'd say those people are
An
skeptics.
Epstein denier? So what, like a
Skeptics.
Holocaust
How
denier?
about skeptics? How about skeptics?
I mean, if there's something I come across that upset an Epstein quote skeptic, like the one or two that exist, then I would say it. But
Well, okay,
I'm
well,
actually going to arbitrarily
read my
do so if
report.
it doesn't
Read my
reflect my
report. Okay,
actual.
your closing thoughts, sir.
My last closing thoughts.
Yeah.
Um, Thanks for coming on. I guess this is fun. This is fine. Like I've been begging people to have adversarial exchanges with me, or even debates, or whatever you want to call it. And virtually no one will do it. So I have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
applaud you for doing it.
Well,
And I don't think it was a debate necessarily. I think it was
no.
productive enough.
Yeah,
So
maybe some people at Dropsite, can do it next if they're not too
no,
afraid.
they've refused.
Oh, well, it's too bad. It's a shame.
Ryan
Alright.
Grimm is too much of a you know what.
Well, I gotta go on that note, but, hey, great chatting.
All right, take care.
Alright,
I will stick around and look through the comments and see if there's anything of interest. I tend to doubt it. So while he logs off, um, let's see. Did anybody say anything interesting? I'm trying to pull up. I wish there was like an AI bot I could insert into this chat stream and have it notify me if anything intelligent was said. Who is next to debate? Can you please go over the beef jerky stuff? No, I will not go over the beef jerky stuff. I'm not going to do the thing that all these dopey podcasters do where I just pull up an email with a reference to beef jerky and then ponder it and make all these salacious inferences from it and then speculate about what they're saying as to beef jerky. No, I will not do that. Because you know what? If you go into these millions of files with the idea that, or the presupposition that a variety of different foodstuffs must be suggestive of something pedophilic, and you type into the search bar beef jerky or pizza, and then you find a handful of emails that seem a little odd, and then you do like videos about it that get millions of views. No, that's not a constructive way of evaluating the story. So no, I'm not going to talk about it. At least not in the way that you want, because there's plenty of actually interesting material and stuff that does illuminate various dimensions of this story that are much more worthy of being poured through and of being analyzed and of being presented. And if you want to just have like a beef jerky commentary, there's plenty of low IQ YouTubers for you to get that from. I don't need to join in on that. Somebody says I'm a pariah. I mogged that guy. I don't know. What is this verb mogged? How come that's being used so often now? I don't even know what it means exactly. Mogged meaning overwhelmed, or what? Mogged meaning you showed him who's boss, something like that. I don't know. I wasn't looking to mog anybody. Um Kishav says, "Why don't you write a book, Michael?" I'm working on it. Okay, so steps have been taken. Let's see if I can get it to come to fruition. But I've had enough people independently tell me to write one, or even command that I must write one. And not just commenters, but there have been many random commenters, but people in the media beseeching me to do this. So I think that I will strive to do it, and I've initiated a process, hopefully, where that does come about. No guarantees yet, but I honestly think I'm the only person, and not to be smug, but I'm really only the only person that I know of who's in a position to do this subject justice, at least from my preferred perspective, right? So I'm almost obliged to do it because otherwise it's not going to get done. Um, Robert Swain says this guy thinks he did something and is very proud of himself. Tracy rules Epstein, Chad's drool. Don't I mean don't you don't have to be nasty to the guy. I mean he seems like a perfectly nice guy. I've been peripherally aware of him. At least he does some journalism. Like he's not just one of these lazy commentary people or pundits or streamers who add really nothing original or of value. So I'll give him credit on that. Um, and at least he like got into the lion's den, so to say. So we don't have to be too derogatory. Will the Florida docket ever be published online? The Florida docket's accessible online. It's been accessible for ages. I mean, I think it's even in the new records. They've swept up everything from Florida and elsewhere into the new DOJ records. I don't know for sure if everything is there, but I assume it. No, I think it is actually. So yeah, it's all online. But I pulled up that transcript from the plea hearing from the Florida state docket, which you can also go get. I mean, you have to like log into their state court system, but that's available. Is Jennifer Elraz a legit victim? I was looking into that a little bit. I don't know. She explicitly, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I don't claim to have comprehensive knowledge of absolutely everything on this, but from what I could tell, she conspicuously does not say what age she was when she purportedly encountered Epstein. Um, I saw that she was featured on this British TV special of Epstein victims, or purported victims recently, and she says I was a young woman or young something, but she doesn't like say what age or what year. I don't know. I would like to see some more specific details as to the chronology and details of her claim. So I don't know. It's difficult to tell. Wasn't she like in some acting thing? I don't know. I'm reserving judgment until I get more information. And if she and her people are deliberately withholding information, then that should tell you something unto itself. Do you think Iran war is inevitable this year? Mm, I wouldn't say inevitable. Little is inevitable in this world. But I thought when Trump crossed the threshold last June and launched the first direct strike on Iran in conjunction with Israel that's ever taken place, I always thought it was folly to declare that, oh, everything's over once Trump came out and announced, okay, we destroyed the nuclear sites, mission accomplished. Because to me, that was just phase one of whatever new phase, or that was just the first part of whatever new phase has been initiated in terms of direct military conflict with Iran. I think it was yesterday I saw JD Vance said something like, "We have intelligence that Iran is reconstituting the nuclear program," something like that. I mean, I haven't been paying as close attention to it as I probably would have otherwise because of the Epstein uproar. But no, I wouldn't say it's inevitable. Although didn't Trump give like a 10-day ultimatum? And that's what he did the first go around. So I guess draw your own inferences. Likely you're dead wrong about that letter being from Nadia. Her dad died in 1983 before she met Epstein. You better delete the tweet. I'm almost 100% that I confirmed that was Nadia prior to tweeting it. I will double check. I'll double check now. Do, do, do. Okay, you might be right. I might have made a mistake there. I double checked that with somebody else. I missed that dad part. I thought that was it either had to be Maria Farmer or Nadia. Um, but maybe you're right. Maybe I did make a mistake there. I will look into that and double check it. Hmm. Okay. Look, if I make a mistake, I'll correct it. So it's possible that I did make a mistake there. Um, who wrote the letter? I thought I was almost positive that it was Nadia. Huh. Did she have a stepfather? mean, that's who she's referring to because everything else in that letter aligns with Nadia. I believe so. Let me just, now you got me spooked. I'm just double checking this. Because I know the mother went to LA to visit her. Who else would have performed in the circus in LA? I'm still pretty sure it's Nadia. I think she might have had a stepfather or something. Again, now you gave me some reasonable doubt here, so I will look into it and verify. But if I made a mistake, yeah, I'll correct that. Um, Thoughts on Clinton's deposition? I hadn't seen it. It's not out yet, right? There's no transcript. I only saw her opening statement, which was just pretty much what you would have expected. Nothing that interesting. Any thoughts on Tulsi and the two big Wall Street Journal reports during your brief 4-day hiatus? Oh my God, the hiatus. You guys are still fixated on that? I'm not on the internet for 4 days and everybody thinks that I've like ran away in shame because I just can't bear to reckon with the Epstein files because they proved me so disastrously wrong. Val, I like this Val person. She's he or she. I think it's a she. I'm not sure. It's always has interesting comments to make. Have you seen the deposition of Sharon Church? Or Michael, I haven't. I don't think she ended up doing a deposition. She was subpoenaed or she was summoned to give a deposition, but I think they ended up invoking like First Amendment journalistic privilege. I don't think she gave a deposition, but I might be wrong about that. Telling you the letter was written by Zinta Braucus. Okay, then I will take that down out of an abundance of caution. I appreciate the correction. Okay, yeah, you might be right. I don't know why because but it was in the Ghislaine Maxwell SDNY stuff. Like one of the markings on it or the bait stamps is maybe it's not a bait stamp, but the stamp cataloging it is from the Southern District of New York Ghislaine Maxwell trial. So what relationship did Zinta Baracus have in that? I mean, you might be right. I'm just a little bit befuddled. Hmm. I'm going to confer with somebody once I get off. I might have to end the stream now to go look into that because, like, I'm actually concerned if I get something wrong or if if I need to make a correction. Half the all these other online ecosystem people, they don't seem to care at all. I mean, I've lied awake at night worrying about a mistake. So if I made a mistake there, yeah, of course I'll correct it. Um, the letter by the way sent by Zinta had a date of 2005 in it. Yeah, I thought I saw 2005, but it was faint. Can whoever is saying this to me now, Jen, can you DM me or email me and give me like a bigger explanation of how you know that it's Zinta? Because you're probably right. Now, I mean, I don't know. I guess I overlooked the dad thing. I don't know why she's in the Ghislaine Maxwell file, or I don't know why that was produced by the Southern District of New York pursuant to the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. So it's a little odd, but I will definitely double check that. Yeah, I saw the envelope. Okay, I'm gonna delete that right now because I don't have enough confidence that it's correct to leave it up. So I will delete that right now, and then I will make a correction. Okay, the tweet is now deleted. Might have misidentified the writer of this letter, so deleting tweet out of abundance of caution. Credit to Substack commenter who notified me about the potential error. Okay, I corrected it. I mean, that's odd. Again, I still have questions about what the context of that letter was, but I did just delete it. What about the 2001 investigating into JE by PB? Yeah, there is some stuff that's earlier than I would have thought, or I think was known at all until the most recent record productions into. There was something I'm not going to remember exactly now, but I think there might have been just a report in 2001 of females potentially going to the house that just prompted some small scale brief investigation where it ended up getting memorialized in some record. Like it wasn't a protracted investigation at that point. But yeah, I saw that. I'm not able at the moment to expound on what that was, but I did see something like that, which told me that there was law enforcement activity or interest in Epstein earlier than had been generally assumed. The unredacted letter is in your replies. How did I miss the unredacted letter? Oh, now how do I even get to my replies? Um, Grant F. Can you DM that to me, or I don't even know how to now find that. I guess I deleted the tweet too soon. Unredacted letter. I thought I looked through every copy of that letter. Some of them were more redacted than others, but maybe I missed it. I see this guy, Marlon Ettinger is here. I mean, I know like you're a big trafficking guy and like you think you're a big Maxwell expert and so forth, and I'm wrong about everything. So if you want to come up, I'll invite you right now. If you have a Substack account, do you? I mean, let me know. I will send you an invite right now and you can press me on whatever you'd like. I'll see if your name pops up. Marlon. It's Marlon Ettinger. Okay. I just sent you an invite, so feel free to pop in if you want. And that you don't have to troll me on X, okay? I mean, it's not too intensive trolling from what I've seen so far, and I'm happy to mix it up, as you could probably tell. But there you go. I hereby invite you to join right this moment, if you'd like, and then you can rake me over the coals. You can beat me over the head with a big giant baseball bat. You can even traffic me. You can enslave me in sex trafficking captivity. You can cannibalize me. You can drown me in a vat of sulfuric acid. You can, engorge me with pizza. I think I can invite up if you have a Substack account. I'm not 100% sure. This is only like the second or third time that I've even done this Substack streaming on the desktop. Before, you could only do it on the phone. I've been screaming for like a year and a half for them to just add desktop accessibility, and they finally did it. So, Marlon, if you're out there, you have been hereby invited. Okay, Grant is sending me the tweet. From Zinta. Okay, you guys are right. Thank you. I screwed that up. Okay, Edwin Collins. I know I should have downloaded all the zip files on the first day. If Ed out there, and I know that some of the zip files, the initial zip files, are accessible, but if you have all the original zip files from January 30th, can you please figure out some way to send them to me? ideally, they would be searchable as well. I'll even pay you if I need to. So Grant F/Ed Collins, whoever has that. I hereby task you. I'll message you later. I need the original zip files in like a searchable format. I know there are torrents with them, and like they're housed in certain places on the internet. But if you have it readily available, I'd be willing to pay for it. So please be in touch. No word from Marlon Ettinger yet, even though I just invited him. Pay me for my homework you keep copying. What homework did I copy? I mean, if somebody tweets me, I don't know. Are you saying that you've tweeted something at me and then I've used it? Like, what else isn't that like the whole point? If you're saying I didn't credit you or something, okay, I mean, maybe I didn't. I don't know. Like people send me stuff and then I'll use it if I feel like it's worth using. So it's not stealing homework. Okay, if Marlon is not going to show up, I'm going to tweet at him. You have been invited to join the Substack stream. Let's see if he shows up. Epstein photo of Howard Lutnick vanishes from DOJ files. Is that right? Oh, there he is. Is this Marlon?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Hey.
How's it going?
I just hopped off and then you sent me an invite.
Well, yeah, because I figured if you were here, you might as well just confront me directly, rake me over the coals.
Rake you over.
I even said you can traffic me if you want. You can overload me with pizza and beef jerky, whatever you'd like to punish me for how wrong I am on Maxwell, Epstein, or whatever.
You're a real comedian. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm here all night.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I just hopped off. I'm in France, so I'm going to sleep now. Let's talk about one subject really quickly, and we can talk more some other time. Okay. So let's just quickly address, you took down this tweet.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I admit it. That was an error. I cross-checked that with somebody, and then it turned out to be wrong. So I'm correcting it.
Like you said, you have a real knowledge of the case, right? So Nadia,
it failed me here, but
yeah. Of course, like you said, Nadia, she testified as Jane Doe in that case. And what were the accusations?
She testified as Jane. It wasn't Jane Doe.
Sure. And what were the allegations she made?
Well, there were numerous allegations.
What was one of the allegations she made? You claim that this master of the case. What were the allegations she made?
Well, I mean, the allegations fundamentally are from the government that she was child sex trafficked.
You're a purported victim, so you're basically claiming that she was not a victim, and that's fine. You can have that position. We can dispute.
Purported is not saying it's not to say someone is a purported victim is not to say that they are not a victim.
But why it's specific
to say that her victimhood has been purported.
You dispute the idea.
I think there's some doubt as to whether the government's theory of her victimization is valid.
Tim later and stayed in touch. No, come on, don't kid yourself. You dispute the idea that she's a victim. We can have this discussion if you.
I doubt the government's case. I doubt Maureen Comey's trafficking theory.
What about her testimony? What do you doubt?
I think that there are lots of problems with the testimony. For example, I'll give you one.
Let's move back.
Do you want me to tell you a problem or not?
I'd first like you to tell me what her testimony is.
I'm not just going to recite to you what her testimony is. Let's talk about a particular aspect of it.
Testimony.
Of course I do. I've read I've read the whole trial transcript.
Sure you do, Michael.
Have you?
I haven't read.
You attended it, right?
I attended the trial, and
you have not read the trial transcript. So you haven't refreshed your memory in the past 5 years?
I refreshed my memory earlier today.
Okay. Well, here's some new knowledge that I was able to acquire recently because her FBI 302s are now out, or at least some of them. She gave an FBI interview in 2020, so about a year and a half. It was early 2020, right? So a little under 2 years before the trial. And she's asked by the FBI agent to describe her experiences with Epstein and or Maxwell. Interestingly, she says that there was a point where she felt like they were the only people who ever cared about her in the world, or something like that.
Right. Her father had died the year before. She felt alone. She was 13 years old. Right.
Well, by the time she's testifying, it was many years before.
But she's describing her experience.
The chronology of it is always a little fuzzy. But one thing that she was asked is, I think so. But one thing she was asked is, was there any sexual abuse at the New Mexico ranch? Because she was said to have gone to the New Mexico ranch on 1 or 2 or 3 occasions. I forget exactly how many. And she said she was asked this several times, and she repeated several times that she had no specific recollection of any sexual abuse that took place at the New Mexico ranch. Then fast forward from like February of 2020 to November of 2021, all of a sudden she's testifying at that trial that she knows for a fact that sexual abuse took place at the New Mexico ranch. So I don't know how that's not impeachable as to her witness testimony. It's not to say that I can make a wholesale statement that she was never victimized by anything ever.
When you're interviewed by the FBI, you're under the threat of perjury.
What's that?
You think impeachable. You think the idea that if you don't recall something when you're having an interview with the FBI, that you were under the threat of perjury and your statements are impeachable. She may not have remembered it when she talked to the FBI. She may not have been comfortable with the agents when she talked with them.
I mean, impeachability as to her credibility at trial, meaning the defense counsel can impeach.
Well, the jury certainly didn't believe that her credibility was impeachable.
Because they had a guy who lied in his jury questionnaire, and then he gives this oration during the jury deliberations and says, "I too am a survivor of child sex abuse," even though that was supposed to be filtered out by the jury questionnaire because it can bias the impartiality of a juror given the subject matter. And he says himself that, in particular, with respect to Nadia, his fellow jurors were very skeptical as to the validity of her claims or the credibility.
So, do you believe he's a credible person or not? That juror.
Well, he lied in the questionnaire.
So why would you believe his account of the deliberations? He clearly was
because he had no incentive to lie
wanted to get into the media. Sure.
I don't think he had any incentive to lie about the jury deliberations at that point. I think he was oblivious as to what repercussion there could be for him.
So let's go back to sort of what her allegations were. Nadia said that when she was, I think it was 14, like you said, it could have been 15. I'm just refreshing myself. This trial was years ago, but it was either 14 or 15 when she claimed
when she first encountered them.
She claimed it was 13 when she first encountered them at Interlochen.
Yeah, but it got revised
later,
like different directions
began.
Yeah.
We could drill deeper into it. Like you said, I'm just refreshing myself on this.
I mean, do you recall that, did you attend the trial in person?
I attended the trial in person, yeah.
Do you recall when it was claimed that she was in an orgy with Maxwell as a participant in the orgy? And this was supposed to be one of the overt acts.
I recall
then undergird the
sexualized massages with Maxwell. I don't recall the word. Maybe I don't remember it, but I don't.
There was an orgy that was claimed. I mean, I'm telling you, look it up.
By who?
By the prosecution, using her as a witness. And so the defense says, okay, who else participated in this orgy? And somehow, strangely, the prosecution was never able to produce the other participants in that alleged orgy, but the defense did. Or they produced the only people who could plausibly be the participants, given who she identified them as. And they both testified that no such orgy ever took place. So yeah, I do think that is reasonably impeaching of the credibility of her testimony, among other reasons.
Among other reasons. Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't believe they met
the headshot, Jeffrey, thank you. You rock my world. When she's an adult, she sends this. Not this letter. That was a mistake.
Evidence of the fact that they had a relationship?
Yeah, I'm not saying they had no relationship, but they didn't know her, or she hallucinated the entire thing, like other of the alleged victims clearly have. But
the sort of narrow band that you're working is you think that you acknowledge they had a relationship, but there was no sexual contact when she was a child.
No, I'm not saying that. I've always said, it's possible that there could have been some degree of sexual contact when she was not above the legal age of consent federally, because that's all they need to establish for a trafficking charge.
It's not 17 364 days, as you like to fall out on. She was either 14 or 15. It was she was unambiguously a child. That's maybe you say it's the narrative,
what sexual act you're talking about, because I think there were different gradations of sexual acts.
Epstein walked her down to the pool house and pulled her onto his lap and started masturbating on her. That was when she was 14. Apparently, that was the first time she ever saw a penis.
Right.
That's one act. It's not like these are the actual allegations.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I don't know if she didn't have any memory of sexual abuse in Mexico in 2020, but then she had vivid memories of it in 2021. And in the interim, she's suing Maxwell. She's suing the Epstein estate. She's demanding tens of millions of dollars. And she's conferring with personal injury attorneys in Los Angeles who are telling her that she would be best served by comporting her story as much as possible with the prerogatives of the prosecution. Then, yeah, that's some grounds for
I'm
skepticism
familiar with
as
this
to the
argument. This was
reliability of the
the argument
narrative.
that Maxwell's defense made
And
at
you
the
think it's a
trial.
totally implausible argument?
I think it is an implausible argument. Here's one reason why it's implausible, and we should talk again because I do have to go. It's like 2:30 here. But,
I didn't realize that you were on, Central
No.
European time, so
Paris time. But, for instance
Oh, yeah, Paris time, got it, yeah.
what if these women who testified in the criminal trial's sole motivation was money, why did they testify in the criminal trial? Because they'd already received their settlements. What did they have to gain by opening themselves up to cross-examination, to potential impeachability, like you said, when they'd already got their money? They already had their payout. Why participate in the criminal trial?
I'm not saying it was the sole reason necessarily. There could be a multitude of reasons why somebody does something, and the
Well, let's talk
monetary
about that
factor
one
could be.
reason.
I mean,
Wouldn't that imperil their settlements? If they had this
yeah,
fabricated narrative, why then testify in the criminal trial?
it doesn't even have to be totally fabricated. It can be embellished or dramatized or tailored toward the attainment of the maximum possible settlement, which is precisely what the lawyers were encouraging her to do. And like, yeah, if Sarah Ransom didn't testify at the Maxwell trial, but like if you go look at her submission to the Epstein Victims Compensation Program is actually in these new files. I mean, to say that she didn't tailor her account of her experiences to the imperative of convincing the administrator of the settlement program to give her the most money, it just it defies credulity. And I don't know, like, why on this one issue we're all just supposed to ignore the potential distorting effects of these gigantic financial incentives. Like, why wouldn't that be human nature? Like, why we're supposed to think that like, to dangle millions of dollars over somebody's head would have no effect whatsoever on their behavior or how they shape their recollection?
On that point, 75 women who made submissions to the fund had their claims rejected. So if they were just handing out,
do we know for sure that it was 75 that were rejected? Where has that been confirmed?
I can't pull it off, but I've seen the number 225 submissions, 100 or it's from subtracting the amount of submissions that were submitted and the amount of that were paid out. It's been reported widely. I can't pull it up for you right now, but
yeah, I mean, I think you're probably in the ballpark.
But anyway, I'm gonna run. We'll talk about this some other time.
Yeah, we'll talk about it some other time. That's fine. But like, she doesn't have to have fabricated the entire thing. Like, Virginia Roberts Giuffre didn't fabricate literally everything. She did almost certainly know Epstein, and she was in contact with Epstein. But she did confabulate her marquee accusations that formed the crux of the Epstein mythology.
Right. That's
you agree with that, right?
Maxwell. No, I don't. That's the argument of Maxwell and Epstein's defense lawyers.
I don't care whose argument it is.
I recognize, like, I've read a lot of these cases. I recognize the arguments you're making. They're well argued. They're initially credible because defense lawyers make convincing arguments, but they're not accurate.
But I didn't just pilfer the arguments of any lawyer, right? This is my own independent assessment. If it happens to align with some lawyer in some respect, then that's incidental.
In a lot of cases, it's not incidental. I read these documents. It makes sense if you're.
So you think I'm lying? You think I'm lying when I say it's my own independent assessment?
I think it not just aligns, but it directly mirrors a lot of the defense arguments.
Because some of it could
like,
be
for
correct.
instance, you posted about Nadia today. You mentioned the photo she sent. That was an argument by the defense lawyers.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I found the photo, because I remembered the part of the trial transcript where they quoted it, and then I searched for the caption of the photo and I pulled it up.
Sure.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay. I do have to run.
Okay.
I'll
goodbye.
Talk to you some other time.
There you go. Okay. Cameo by a guy who is always railing at me on X. Anybody else out there who wants to give me a hard time? Okay. I think I am going to log off at this point. Please do a grape soda and pizza live stream. Yeah. You know what? I think at some point I might just have to sink my teeth into a piping hot cheese pizza, just so that everybody can analyze it and try to divine the sinister meaning of it. So you can watch me savor that cheese pizza all night long and then tell me what you're able to conclude from it. Okay. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Maybe I'll debate / converse with that guy later. Like, not everything has to be a structured, formal debate. You know. Okay. Ta-ta for now. I hopefully will have an article not on the Substack, but I'll repost it on the Substack either tomorrow or maybe over the weekend. But it's something that I hope comes out. And if you're watching now and you're not subscribed or whatever, make sure to subscribe. Obviously, paid subscriptions are appreciated because I'm actually not paid by any Epstein co-conspirators. I mean, maybe that would be nice if all these billionaires were desperate to just fund me so I could be subsidized to look through court records and so forth. But that is not the case, which is why my appreciation of anybody who is not yet subscribed as a paid subscriber, if they would consider upgrading. But you don't have to. It would just be nice. Okay. Take care, everybody.